Let's begin today's episode by talking about a trade idea that's not revolving around Myles Garrett or Cooper Kupp, but another trade idea that's been tossed out there where a former first-round draft pick ends up with the Denver Broncos and a former first-round draft pick at a major position of need. So that's why I want to begin today's episode off here by talking about Evan Engram, the tight end from the Jacksonville Jaguars, who was mentioned in a Bleacher Report trade idea that sent him from Duval to Denver. Now, unfortunately, Engram did not have a season to remember, although no one from Jacksonville really did last year. He had a labrum injury cut that season short. Former first-round pick by the New York Giants out of Ole Miss, selected by the G-Men, didn't really live up to expectations in East Rutherford, and then has a revival in Jacksonville as he begins to get his career turned around and the production starts going up. I mean, you can look at what he was doing a few years ago, 4 seasons ago in 2021, before he gets to Jacksonville, and then he has a breakout campaign with the Jags, putting up 766 yards, 4 touchdowns, and then getting all the way up to 963 yards and 4 touchdowns in 2023. And then last year, like everyone in Jacksonville, 365 yards, 1 touchdown, a bad year. I remember he was on my fantasy team, not that anyone cares about my fantasy team, and he got injured in warm-ups, which is the worst time to get injured because you feel like you're ready to roll, and then poof, you got to make a change 10 minutes before kickoff. So this is the Bleacher Report trade idea that was cooked up. It's a hypothetical trade. Denver gets Evan Engram along with a 7th-round draft pick. How nice of them. And the Jags get a 4th-round draft pick. Surface level, I think it's a fair-ish trade. I don't think it's wildly excessive for one team or the other. I think it's probably a little bit too steep. We've seen a lot of veterans get traded and they don't get nearly as much as you think they do because a team will just go, why use a 4th on an older veteran player when I can use it on a rookie at that same position? The plan for Denver should be to draft a tight end. What's tough about this plan is when you're picking 20, you're not guaranteed anyone at that spot. If your plan is Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland and they get dealt or picked right before you, now you got to start putting together plan C, D, E, F, and G, which is why I think if an Evan Engram trade did happen with the Broncos, since they should prioritize the draft for tight end first, given it's a loaded tight end class. I mean, in other years, this trade could make more sense pre-draft. Not a very good tight end class. Let's go with a proven guy. But in this year's draft class, it's a great tight end class. So I would say wait until the draft. See if you get Warren or Loveland at the 20th pick if that's what you want to do. If you don't get them, then I'd say trade for Evan Engram before day 2 of the draft. But I don't think this is something you have to rush to pre-draft. Now I'll turn it over to you. Would you draft Evan Engram? Would you trade for Evan Engram? Give me a yes or no in the comment section. I want to hear from all of you guys watching down below. I say wait and see if you can get the guy you're targeting at pick number 20 or even round number 2. We see lots of players get dealt mid-draft. Happened last year or 2 years ago. Was it DeAndre Swift when he got traded to the Eagles in the draft, right? Oh, no, they tried to trade him last year or 2 years ago. A.J. Brown, Marquise Hollywood Brown. There's a lot of guys. I thought DeAndre Swift got traded by the Eagles were trying to trade. This will come to me later. Okay, so that's our Evan Engram portion. Moving on here. On to the second segment of today's episode. Zach Wilson. Is he coming back to Denver? There have been a lot of reports about the possibility of the Broncos losing one or both of their unrestricted free agent quarterbacks in Zach Wilson and Jarrett Stidham. So I want to discuss the possibility of Wilson moving on from the Broncos. First, though, I do have to give a special shout-out to our friends over at Game Time. Game Time has an awesome feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you do not have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. One thing I really like about Game Time is their all-in pricing option. Toggling this feature shows the total upfront cost with no surprise fees at checkout. Plus, on Game Time, you can filter by city, so you can see what's going on in Denver, whether it's an Avs game or a Nuggets game. So do yourself a favor right now and take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHAT Sports for $20 off. All of that information is in the comments and description of today's video. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. So getting back to Zach Wilson. Sorry, I got a little flushed into my head for a moment. Wilson, a free agent, might be on his way out after 1 year with the Broncos, who was acquired in a trade after the NFL draft last year. I thought he looked really good in the preseason for what national expectations were, given how he played in New York with the Jets. And he might feel like after one season of Sean Payton rehab, he's ready to roll. Here's what Chris Thomason wrote on Zach Wilson recently. Wilson, who was the third stringer and wasn't active for any games, seems more likely to move on since he is just 25, and another team might consider him an intriguing player they can continue to develop. I think in Zach Wilson's best interest, he should stay another year with Sean Payton. If he is going somewhere else to just be a backup, the question should become not about the quarterback I'm backing up, but the coach I'm learning from. And my suspicion is there's not a long list of coaches where he's going to learn more from than Sean Payton while sitting as a backup. I'm sure there's a sense of urgency and impatience to kick in and go play somewhere else, and you know that's not going to happen with Bo Nix above you on the depth chart. But I think it's in his best interest to do one more year of Sean Payton rehab, really improve his image, especially if he's the backup. That means he can start pretty much every single preseason game, and he can really put out some good tape. And the next year, that would be a better offseason after 2 years in Denver, 2 preseasons with Sean Payton and whatnot, and he might get a bigger contract at that point. Then whereas this year, he's not going to be viewed as a top 3, top 5 free agent quarterback in my eyes. Before we get to the third and final segment of today's show, make sure you follow us, though, for free agency news and rumors. That is a little over a month away, so subscribe to the channel. We are closing in on 32,500 subscribers, so we'd greatly appreciate it if you could scroll on down and click that sub button. Switching gears here, from Zach Wilson, we go to, unfortunately, some bad news, and that is some more personnel losses. Broncos front office, coaching staff, the entire organization has been stripped down in a lot of ways. We got this earlier on February 4th from Mike Kliss saying, per source, the Broncos are losing do-everything administrator Mark Thews to Raiders. To show what Broncos felt about Thews, he was hired as Josh McDaniels' right-hand man in 2009. Cool story about this, by the way. Kliss did an awesome article on it. Was McDaniels and Thews were high school teammates in football, and he was working at like some market company, some market agency, something like that. And all of a sudden, his old buddy Josh McDaniels gets the job in Denver, and what does he do? He hires his old wide receiver partner from their days in Canton, Ohio. But he's been with the Broncos for well over a decade, closing in on 2 decades compared to just 1 decade. And all of a sudden, after 1 season of playoff success and the Broncos making the playoffs for the first time and in the second longest playoff drought in the NFL, everyone wants a slice of the Broncos. So he is reuniting with Spytek, who is the new Raiders GM, who used to be a Broncos scout. I'm sure it's a bit of a upgrade, promotion, a pay raise. I doubt he would just make the move laterally after all the success they're having in Denver right now and he's having. So, best of luck to him. I wish him nothing but the best, and it definitely stinks to see more people that Sean Payton highly covets and builds around moving on to not greener pastures, but moving up the ladder a little bit, because these are important people that Payton has to try and replace. Assistant GM, that's something George Payton has to work on now. This executive we just talked about, Mark Thews, and then David Shaw going to the Detroit Lions, John Morton going to the Lions to be their offensive coordinator, Declan Doyle going to the Bears to be their offensive coordinator. He fired Ben Kodwika, assistant special teams coordinator, Chris Banjo going to the Jets to be their special teams coordinator. Sean Payton fired inside linebackers coach Greg Minutsky. Key coaches and personnel members moving on to different areas in the league. And my key takeaway is this is not something to panic over. This is a sign that you are doing things the right way. When so many other teams look at your franchise as a breeding ground of success for coaches and for front office members, you have the right people in place at the top. And we have seen so many examples of the Patriots and the Chiefs just get completely stripped apart. The Eagles, they lose both their offense and defensive coordinator, Shane Steichen, and what's his face in Arizona, Jonathan Gannon. And what do? They replace them, and a few short years later, they are right back in the Super Bowl. So this might look as like a bad thing. It's not great for Sean and George Payton, but overall it's a sign of this is a healthy franchise because other teams keep wanting to come here and take their rising pieces. When it comes to the Super Bowl, who do you got? Chiefs or Eagles? Let me know in the comment section below who you think is going to win on Sunday.